The number one question I get asked from my friends and colleagues and social media network is, how do you get clients? I don't know. It's really difficult when you're starting out. It's like when you first went out to try and get a job. You don't have experience, you just graduated college, your CV is relatively empty, it's filled with, your degree, some extracurricular activities and whatnot, but they're always looking for 4 years of experience, right? I just graduated college. How am I gonna have 4 years of experience for a entry-level job? Anyway, it's the same thing, I think. That's how I felt when I first started my agency, and I was finally getting some leads, or I was reaching out to cold leads, and I was always getting the question. I mean, it is different because they are paying you. They're going to pay you, right? So it makes sense that they would ask for, or they would do their due diligence before giving you a ton of money. But for me, on my side of things, that's how I felt, right? Because I knew I can provide, I can deliver, I can, perform, but I didn't have the credentials. I didn't have case studies. I didn't have a bunch of client logos on my website, on my very, very poorly designed first website. And so it was really, really difficult. I'm going to do a short video on how I got my first clients and how I think many of you might be able to close your first client. So I think the number one thing for me, the most powerful at least, it wasn't how I closed my first client, but it was how I close a lot of clients even today, is to provide value to your audience. The number one thing for me was to provide value for your target market and your audience, that buyer's persona, to provide informational content that's relevant to your target market or your target audience and that speaks to the pain points of your buyer's persona. So before you even start, you need to know who you are trying to sell to, who you're trying to provide services to, and what you specialize in. Now, for me, this probably won't apply to you. It won't be the same for you. But for me, I was in Korea. I worked at Korean agencies. I was very, very fluent in the digital landscape and the things that go on and the things that work for the Korean market. My specialty at the time was social media marketing. So that was where I came from. And what I did was I started applying that for the global market. What I mean by that is I was starting to provide, when I first started, providing informational content in online communities. So for example, for the West or for the English speaking audience, there's Quora, there's Reddit. But don't mess around with Reddit. That will backfire. So be careful on Reddit. But LinkedIn and things like that. So those channels for the local market in Korea, I was on there answering questions about social media marketing in the US or the West or English-speaking countries, the global markets, and starting to build an authority in that niche, in those small communities, on multiple communities. The other thing, once I started to learn more myself, was to write out these ebooks. They weren't, white papers. They weren't 100-page ebooks. They were just short ebooks, but value providing. So answering questions, addressing the pain points of who I was speaking to. And of course, on those online communities, some of those people were other marketers or my competition, but a lot of those people were small businesses or small business owners. Those were the people I was talking to. And eventually they started contacting me separately, asking me if I can help with this, if I can help with that. Of course, my pricing was very, 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 very underpriced because I wanted to close people first. That's for another talk, but don't underprice yourself when you start. Don't be like me. Another thing is when you do provide this value, and it should be free, right? You should provide a lot of value for free. You might feel like, why am I doing this? I'm not making money off of this. I'm sharing my secrets. Number one, nobody's going to pay for that upfront, right? For me, it was having open doors was really, really helpful in getting the people into those doors, right? And even if you provide all this information for free, there's a human touch to it. Even if two people have the same information, person A might not do as well as person B, right? So those are things to consider. Another thing, a benefit for me, it might not apply for you, but when it came to the Korean market, people don't like sharing everything, right? They don't like sharing their secrets. They're very, actually, I don't want to generalize, but I noticed in the specific industry where I was in, people were not sharing 100%, right? They were guarding the secrets. They're not even secrets, but they were guarding the information. So when I started coming out, and providing all this information, giving these know-hows and walkthroughs and tutorials about different SaaS tools that you can use, even small business owners, and I would tell them, you can do this on your own, right? That was a big point for me too, on even, I do that today on sales calls as well. Not that exact statement, but letting them know that they can do it on their own or that they don't need me necessarily. That actually helped me sell more. They wanted more, right? They wanted me when I told them they didn't need me. I don't know. You probably have a few ex-girlfriends or boyfriends out there that push and pull, right? So that worked a lot for me. Offline events. If you're like me, I'm very, very nervous. I'm very, very anxious. I have anxiety issues. Not a sob story. I'm just saying. And I didn't like, and I'm a big introvert. I don't like going out. I don't like meeting people. Offline events were terrifying, and I still don't do them often. I am on YouTube now. Hi, Mom. Anyway, offline events. So I didn't do any offline events. I did try to go to offline events. If you're like me, even that is terrifying. Even if I'm sitting in the back and nobody even sees me, I'm so nervous. Got sweaty arms, sweaty hands, sweaty palms, arm spaghetti. But instead of offline events though, offline events might work. So what I mean by offline events is, for example, at your local co-working space or whatever local community, going out and doing a quick talk on your specialty, what you're an expert at. That would help. I could not do that. When I did offline events, but I did something even more difficult. Not stupid, but I was desperate. I would go out to the local restaurants because that's where I niched down in the very beginning was cafes and restaurants. So I would go to the local restaurants and cafes and pull out my little business card and talk about what I do, and I get kicked out of a lot of restaurants. But I did close. So I did close. That my very first client was like $50 or something like that. It was a small restaurant. They sold kimbap. I don't know. But I did what I could. I had to close clients. I had to grow. None of the other bigger franchises or other places would accept me, obviously, because I didn't have the credentials and the experience. Well, I had the experience, but I didn't have it for the brand, right? For our agency. So what I wanted to say, so to sum things up, I'll do a more in-depth video or a more in-depth guide of how to start closing clients. I'll do another one on how to close bigger clients because now we work with enterprises, global enterprises. But I think the number one thing, regardless of what size or what stage you are at for an agency or even a business or any business or e-com store, whatever, I think is to become an authority figure in the industry or the space or the niche that you're in, and to constantly provide value to your audience. And that's a short statement, harder said than done. But even with that short statement, you can expand on that by providing valuable content, buyer's persona, or to the specific identity or the buyer or the person within their buyer's journey. Because, for example, as an agency, not everyone's ready to pull the trigger. Not everyone's at this stage or that stage. And so we are trying to speak to each person during each stage of the journey, the buyer's journey, their journey to come pull the trigger with us. So to sum things up, I think we can narrow it down to one thing, and I know a lot of people want more, so maybe I can do a more in-depth guide or an in-depth step-by-step of what worked for me, because that's all I can really talk about. But becoming an authority figure or an authority in your specific industry or brand or niche or space, that is what will drive the leads towards you. And to expand on that, there's different types of people, of course, and your buyer's persona is one, but there's also that buyer's journey, different stages of where they are before they convert or before they purchase. And so knowing who you're speaking to at what point of time will really help you narrow down the type of content that you create for them, and more importantly, how they read that content or accept that content. And the better it is, the easier it is to convert down the road, or hopefully soon. And before I end the video, the most important thing for me, and I bring this up with everyone on our team at my agency, is that as an agency, we are a service provider. We provide services for our clients, right? And so our profit or our success is dependent on the client's success. When we try to deliver, when we work on our deliverables, when we try to perform, when we strategize or whatever it is, we think about the client. We think about the client alone. We don't think about our agency. It should always be about the client. The better the client does, the better the campaigns perform for the client, the better it is for your agency ultimately. So you don't even have to think about the agency when you're working with clients or as a service provider. Your sole purpose is to do well for your client, whether that is, lead gen, whether that is making more sales, boosting revenue, whether that's establishing their brand awareness, whatever the case is, you want to over deliver. And it's not always possible. I understand that. But the goal, the hard work, the investment, the time, that should be all driving towards the client success. The client success is your your success. And a big part of agencies or agency life is retention. To me, retention is more than 50% in the game. I think it could be broken down into two things, sales and retention. I'm sure there's more to it, but retention is the name of the game for me. So you want to keep these clients. The only way to keep them is to do well for them and make them happy. So I hope that was helpful for you guys. And if you want to know more, if you have any questions, or if you think anything I said was stupid, leave a comment and subscribe.